everyone. But thank you for joining us. I hope everybody that's already hanging out in the chat, thank you for being patient. Got to do my quick retweets. Everybody that's in this panel is quickly like retweeting, spasming that we're live. So there we go. We are doing a creating board game media content creators Q&A session. So we have some fantastic panelists in this stream right now on the panel with me, and we're going to let them introduce themselves. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I'm kind of giving us a second for everybody to get in. Oh, I see so many awesome people in the chat. Thank you so much. So yeah, the idea of this panel is I get a lot of questions all the time from content creators with just varying, like, how do I do this? What's a great way to do this? Should I do this? So many questions. And they're asking me that as a publisher. They want my opinion. Oh, let me mute my phone. So many notifications. I'm live on Twitch. Did you know that? So I get those questions all the time. When I was a content creator on this Twitch platform and YouTube, which I had to dust the cobwebs off of it to make this panel, I also got those questions, and I love answering those questions. I love helping other creators in the community, and I know I'm not the only one that loves to help and support and build this community of content creators and media creators in board gaming. And so I have asked some of my fellow content creators and publishers to help come and answer some of these questions that I know I get all the time. I believe they get these all the time too. A lot of them were like, yes, please. I get these questions all the time. So I am super excited. Let's go ahead and start introductions. Let's make it where we're all equal footing. There we go. Awesome. And we're just going to go down the screen. So first of all, hi, I'm T from HABA. I also go by the One Tar on Twitter. I prefer they, them pronouns. And yeah, I am the games channel manager for HABA USA now. I started in the industry as a content creator with a YouTube channel and then Twitch streams. And now I am too busy doing HABA to really do content, but I still love doing content and helping content creators grow their own brand and channel. So that's about me. Next up.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Shannon from Chip Theory Games. I prefer she, her pronouns. And my title here is Rules Specialist and Media Liaison. And a lot of other things kind of mixed in with that.
And hello, my name is Dowd. I prefer she, her, and they, them. I work at Leader Games, and I am the marketing and events coordinator here.
Hey everyone, I'm Mandy Hutchinson. My pronouns are she, her. You've probably seen me on shows such as The Dice Tower and my own channel, To Die For Games. Lots of fun things in between there. I'll keep it short. That's probably about it.
And I'm Jess Cassidy. Pronouns are she, her. And you've seen me on Heavy Cardboard, but I also work with a number of publishers as well.
My name is Jonathan Liu. I'm the senior editor at GeekDad. I've been writing reviews there for about 11 years now, and my pronouns are he, him.
I'm Elaine Bladukiene. I'm part of No Pun Included. We do silly review videos on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Rodney Smith. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and I have a YouTube channel called Watch It Played. And I thought for sure Jess was going to say, in addition to other things, I also attend every convention ever.
This is true.
Yes, Jess is everywhere at all times. Awesome. I thank you so much, everyone, again, for coming and agreeing to be on this panel. I am so excited. We have so many amazing questions, and I'm going to do my best to try and moderate this panel so we get through those questions quickly and efficiently, because we have, I think everyone here wants to share this information and is very excited to help, but there's so many great questions. And if you have questions in the chat that you would like to add or make on top of that, please let us know in the comments. We're going to do our best to try and track the comments. If somebody posts a question and you all in the chat really, really like it, maybe copy and paste and repeat it so we definitely see it, and we'll acknowledge when we see it. But let's go ahead and jump into it. There's so many questions. I'm just going to go ahead and pick one of the ones that we had that I think is very good to start with. And I think I'm actually going to start with Rodney because I think this is very relevant. So Rodney, how do you get comfortable on camera? James Wood asked this over on Twitter.
It's a good question. I mean, first of all, I'll say the easy answer, which is practice helps. Practice a little bit. In fact, I would recommend that to anyone who's thinking about maybe doing their first piece of content. Do a practice round. Get all the equipment set up, record yourself, but with no intention and no pressure on yourself that you're going to be putting it out there first. Just do it to practice, and then watch yourself afterwards. And yeah, try to be your own best and worst critic and see where maybe you can improve some things. Maybe you're stumbling on some of the things you're trying to say. Maybe there's a lot of ums and uhs. And maybe you can start to come up with, okay, what do I think would help me do better? What do I need? Do I need a little, music playing in the background? Do I need to practice? Do I need to have the lines nearby? Maybe I need to write a little outline before I start recording just to help keep myself on track. I think things like that can be helpful. I had a friend of mine who's very introverted, but in front of the camera, you wouldn't know it because when she's recording, she's still alone. She's still very much in control of the message and the way it's presented. And so she finds that quite empowering. So you might have some nerves about getting in front of the camera, but maybe once you try, some of that will drop away in that format. But I'd say one other last little thing quickly to wrap up. It's okay if video is not for you. You might think you want to do video, but maybe you try it and you discover, I'm just not comfortable and I can't get myself comfortable. There might be other things you can do, other ways of expressing yourself in board game media that isn't necessarily a video.
Yeah. And just talking to yourself and recording and that kind of stuff is really great. And there are other mediums. And one of the people that uses a lot of other mediums would be Mandy. You actually started with To Die For games, and then also you did the podcast, and so you do camera stuff and podcast stuff. How did you get comfortable with Canada, or did you start just with podcasting? Or
so for me, I guess I'm in a different role because I'm a teacher, and I know this is hard to believe, but I am actually an introvert. So I had to find tricks and ways to be comfortable doing things in front of people because we do panels at conventions and they're filmed sometimes. So I tell, my classes that I do, I tell people to create a character. So it's still you, but this is your extroverted in the front of the camera character. So you still get to see who you are, but in a different level. And then you can still keep some of you to yourself. I don't know, it's kind of a weird explanation, but I literally get people to create a character. And these are the things that you try to hit when you do your videos. But Rodney and UT pointed out some really important things, recording yourself and looking back, listening to yourself. And for me, it was a hard transition from video to podcast. And anybody who has listened to the early podcast will tell you, we got there eventually, but it's really different. The way you express yourself is very different on camera versus on the podcast.
This is very true. Yeah. And we actually, Jonathan Liu, I'm going to just really quickly throw to you because you do written reviews. So you might have a very quick answer for this as well.
Yeah, I'm not super comfortable on camera.
Thank you for being here,
but
though.
I've been doing written reviews. I prefer reading to watching videos myself. And so that's part of why my content is written reviews and photos, and so I don't have to be in front of the camera.
Yeah,
I can be behind it.
Exactly. And so there is options for creating media, either podcast or written. You don't have to be comfortable on camera, but I think that was a great starting question. Thank you so much, James. I think this next one, so when I picked this panelist, I'd like to pick a selection of publishers because content creators are often dealing with publishers and interacting with publishers to get the games or to figure out what the publishers want, because a lot of content creators and marketing people, they're helping market the products for those publishers. And so it makes sense for a publisher to have a relationship. And so, sorry, I didn't do a warning, but I'm going to go to Gates with this one. This is from, I'm so sorry, I'm going to say your name wrong. It's Jonah. It's not Jonah. But One Pip Wonder, who I know is a newer content creator, they ask, what's the best way to approach content creation with professionalism, but without making it all about earning money from, and I wanted to put a twist on this, from the publisher's perspective. Do you have any advice for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually been answering this question a lot more recently since we have been gearing up, living in the times of COVID, especially video content, but approaching with a collaboration idea first. It's happened before where I've sent out review copies and it was like, hey, here's my sponsorship. And I was like, this is weird, like this is what we agreed on before. So definitely coming with the intention of like, if you have a unique idea to collaborate with a publisher or with us, we want to hear that. We want to get excited just as much as you were excited about talking about our game, because at the end of the day, we're wanting people to get excited about our games. So as far as with professionalism, it's just lead with the intent. If you're reaching out wanting for sponsorships, being like, I have this great idea for a live stream. I'll use Fort as examples. Like, I want to play Fort in a fort, and would you guys be willing to sponsor this? And that leads off on a better foot, more professionally, than if it's like, hey, can I have a review copy? And then on the back end, we kind of get like, hey, you can sponsor us now. So that is kind of a good way. And then also I would recommend doing just a little bit of research on the publisher. Why is it that you want to partner with them? Is it because your audience or your community likes this same games that publisher puts out? Or like, what is getting it exciting for you to approach us? So
yeah. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. And some of it, like you said, is just having a conversation and actually having a conversation.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Not just like being, hey, give me free games. This is another one that I know a lot of with new content creators, they're dealing with Kickstarters and they're dealing with trying to support Kickstarters, but also have Kickstarters is a different relationship than maybe some publisher relationships, because with a Kickstarter, you're often paying for content or that kind of thing. And so I know, Jess, you work with a lot of Kickstarter stuff. So do you have some good input on this question?
As a follow-up to what Gates said, because that's a great idea to have these ideas in place that you're presenting to a publisher and be ready to run with it. But if you don't have an idea in place, especially if a Kickstarter is running and you know the publisher is going to be crazy busy with that, asking questions. I love it when I get an email during a campaign where they're like, you know what, I missed this. It wasn't on my radar. Is there anything you need at this point? Is there something you're missing? Is there a way I could provide something that would be a benefit to this Kickstarter because I love this game or I've played it before, or this or that? So telling your experience level with the game, if you've seen it before, if you've demoed it, so I know where you are with it and how much you know about it, but then asking the publisher what you can do and what you can bring to it. So have great ideas, try to come up with great ideas. And if you don't have that, ask where you could be a benefit to that publisher, especially when you know, publishers are dealing with a lot of things at once, and getting that media review out there isn't the only thing on their radar. So yeah, seeing what they need.
Yeah. And I messed up. So I mentioned the Kickstarter and paying for content and working with publishers in that way. But the question was specifically without making it all about earning money, which, it could be spun that way if you're trying to make content for Kickstarters and that kind of stuff. So Elaine, you have a great perspective on this, because you make content for your viewers, and you all started not with the intention of making it about money.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we started because we wanted to show off games. We wanted to talk about games. We wanted to join this whole community. And it was never about trying to make money out of it. We specifically say always we don't look at Kickstarter projects, things like that. And we don't do paid content. Everything that we earn is crowdfunded. And we just tried to be as good as we could be. We entered it from the standpoint of, okay, we don't have any great equipment or anything like that, but we're going to try and put something out and get better each time we do a video, and work up to having professional camera set up, having good microphones, having good lighting, and hopefully people will get on board with that and enjoy that, and so far I think
and they definitely are. I think your humor and your content, it clearly shows that you're making content for your viewers and that you want to watch, not necessarily with the intention of doing it just to make a buck, which is one of the reasons why I love your channel, and your channel is so genuine too. I think that's a huge part of that. So let's do another question. There's so many great questions coming in the chat. We're trying to keep up with it. Thank you, other panelists that are helping me keep track of all these questions. Shannon, next question coming to you, sort of related to the professionalism comment and things like that. And I might chime in this one after you answer, but the question is, what do publishers look for in content creators besides raw numbers of followers? And Midnight Board Gaming asked this over on Twitter, and I think this is a great question. So.
Yeah, so we are always looking for people who are excited about what they're doing, are excited about our products. So if you can find a way to show that excitement when you are communicating with us, that goes a really long way. We're always looking for people who are doing things in a bit of a different way. When you're sending your game out to content creators, especially for us, our games are big and they're expensive to make and they're expensive to ship. So we might not be able to send out as many review copies as some other companies can. So we're always looking for different pockets, different content creators that are doing things in a different way. So we want someone who can play it live. We want someone who can explain how to play. We want someone who can review it, who can do a written review. So if you're doing something in a bit of a different way, then that's always good to let us know. What's your kind of different spin on that so that we can make sure we get it covered in as many different ways as possible.
And looking for new stuff is also a thing. One of the things that I know when I look for, like I mentioned with HABA stuff, is I look for content creators that are doing something new and interesting, but also I really am looking for content creators that are clearly passionate about the content that they're making, because the ones that are clearly passionate about their content are the ones that are more likely to stick with it long term. They're more likely to build a genuine audience. You can kind of tell when somebody's just trying to like emulate another person's video style versus somebody who is trying to just share their love of the games. So I really am looking at that. I do like to find a mix of content creators. It's not just about subscribers. It is about like, what are you saying in the content? Not like, oh, do you always love every game? Are you critical? Do you actually like give critical insights or good, interesting spins on how you look at games? Is your presentation unique? Are you an interesting and new voice? So that's one of the things that I'm also looking for when we talk about looking for new content creators. So many questions. The next question, I think this is a great one, especially to spin towards Jonathan. I have to find it. I'm like prepping all the questions. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So, and this one, I don't remember who it came from. This was from the chat, I believe, or maybe it was Jess. For new content creators, do you think it's important to do content that is relative to today, or is it okay to practice and build up your content by making videos about older games? And I'm going to spin this a little bit because videos is not the only kind of content you can make. You can make written reviews, you can make podcasts, you can do TikToks, you can do, I guess TikToks are technically video, but there's different mediums that you can do. And Jonathan Liu does a lot of reviews of a lot of different games of a lot of different ages, and he uses written. So Jonathan, do you have an answer for this one? Oh, you're still muted.
All right. And I'll mention that's from it looks like from Board at Home in the chat there.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so on GeekDad it's not just me. We've got a bunch of different game reviewers on the GeekDad and Geek Mom sites. And we built up an index of our tabletop, game reviews, and we're up to, I think we're over 1,100 reviews on that site. And so what happens is, if you have a review right now for an older game, it may not get as much attention, but we have this log of them so that, if someone's looking for, hey, I just discovered this game, I'm new to gaming, and I'm looking for reviews about, these games, is it appropriate for my kids, or, will my gaming group like it? Hopefully, having that long list of reviews will give them, give you a chance to say, okay, I'm looking for, information about this game. There may not be as much content, especially for older games, games that came out when not a lot of people were making content. And so, for us, there's always so many games to review. I think it is easy to fall into the cult of the new. Even, for us, we're always wanting to review the latest thing. But there's only so many of us, and there's a lot of games, and so there are a lot of us that try to make content for some of the older games as well. And I will mention for new content creators, that's a great way to build up a little bit of a portfolio of things you've done, because you can start with the games you own. You don't have to go out and try to get a review copy right away. That's what I started with. Was I picked games I liked and reviewed those first.
Yeah, and that's how I started as well. I picked games that I liked, that I loved, that I could talk about while wandering around in an airport and not have to look up a rule book, right? So I asked my panelists if there was anybody else that wanted to answer this one, and a lot of you have answered. So we're going to jump to Rodney next for this one. Rodney.
I'll be quick, but I was just thinking this ties in so nicely with the prior question. If you're looking at trying to build relationships with a publisher, maybe go into their catalog and find a game that, like with so many games releasing every year, there's all kinds of incredibly good games that just don't get coverage the same way. So if you wanted to help develop that relationship with the publisher, go find maybe one of their hidden gems and make a great piece of content about that, and then show it to them afterwards and say, this is the sort of thing I'm willing and interested in doing for your games. They'll probably appreciate the added spotlight, even if it's not necessarily going to make an immediate big impact on your viewing audience. It might be a way to start building that relationship. Yeah, and that's a great point.
That's something I look for. I'm actually going to jump to Mandy next on this one. I'm trying to keep it where we cycle kind of in somewhat of a equal number of stuff. So Mandy, because you all wanted to answer this one.
I'll keep it super quick because I know everybody wants a chance to talk. But touching on what Jonathan said, I started with just playing games that I had. And then what I would do is create the video and then tag the publisher to say, hey, I'm doing this sort of thing. And I want you to see what I'm doing. You know, I'm happy to do what I own. I didn't start off by asking for review copies right away. And even in my current, the podcast with Suzanne, we have a segment called Shelf Staple, which we purposely choose a game that's older and try and talk about it, because we do know that we have a lot of people in the audience that are new to gaming and may not want the newest hotness. So even if you can try and plug that in when you're doing your content, I think that would be really fun.
Yeah,
for people
definitely.
to hear.
And let me look. It looks like we're going to jump to Gates next. Oh no, I just kicked Gates. Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay, you're here. So the thing with this format is I have to go back to this screen to switch to the solo, but I keep wanting to go down at the bottom, but the only thing I can do at the bottom is kick you out. So
we're playing Survivor version. Who will be left?
Eliminated.
I don't like this question. You didn't answer right. Get out.
Dang it. No, I want to echo Mandy and Rodney kind of hit on point where I wanted to, and especially I was going to mention the shelf stables. Another thing I wanted to mention is that there's content creators that have communities just surrounding one game, like Twilight Imperium. And until a couple of days ago, there wasn't a lot of new Twilight Imperium content coming out, but there's still ways that you can talk about older games that you love. And there's communities around that. I'll sneak in, if anybody wants to start a Power Grid podcast, I will gladly help. So
I will too. Let's talk. I'll pick a map. We can talk about it. Yeah.
But yeah, just talk about the things that you truly enjoy, because that's what's going to feed off your audience. Your audience knows first and foremost when you're not being genuine and if you're not excited about something. So there's that.
Yeah, definitely. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump to Jess, and I'm not going to remove you. I'm going to do this one.
So I don't get kicked out. Good. I'm still on the island. So yeah, no, everybody's touched on it a little bit, but there are games out there that have really big followings that maybe don't have a lot of content creation because of the time they came out. As Rodney said, there's a lot of games coming out at once. There's these hidden gems that are really great games. And if you can show a unique perspective on that, especially if it's a game you have a lot of experience with, you can kind of breathe new life into it, which is going to develop that relationship with the publisher as well, because they're going to appreciate that kind of boost for an older game. And also, I mean, if you're trying to look at why you're creating this and your audience at the forefront of this, like No Pun Included does, like focusing on the audience versus the publishers, then your audience is going to appreciate finding those hidden gems, those games that have been well polished, maybe have a bunch of, like, we're talking about Power Grid, a bunch of expansions that you can dive into and just you could cover all the differences in those as well, so people maybe know where to get started. So yeah, it's definitely a great idea to look at what's on your shelf and dive into that.
Yeah, sorry, I had to mute. Steve was up on that one. So I think there's so many great answers on that one. I think everybody's kind of, do what makes sense for you, and you could totally go older, which is super true. This is apparently very important, but Shannon, Mandy, are your headphones the same? Are you wearing the same headphones?
I think so. Mine are Razer. I don't know if you can see Razer, and then they're the Kraken collection, but with the ears. I think they're the same, Shannon, though. You can let me know.
Yeah, you have the better ones, clearly, because you have the ears, but they are
You can actually change the colors on them. I have a little cycle going right now. See, there you go. Elaine's making some of her own.
All right, then. That was, I don't have a question banner for that, but I should have made a question thing for that. Awesome. And actually, those headphones, you can remove the plates, right? And you said you rotate the colors, but do they come with other colors, or do you buy them separate?
Oh, no. So there's a program. So my whole desk, you can't see it right now, is pink. Everything here, the keyboard, the mats, the little stand, it's all part of this collection. And you have a program that can cycle through the colors. So you can set the ears to cycle through a certain color. And the sides, lights. Right. All the lights. Sorry, I wasn't very clear. All the lights.
I was thinking the plastic parts. This is obviously the most important part of this panel. We have another, we have so many great questions. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and start up here. Do you find having good equipment is helpful to create good content, i.e. purchasing microphones, software, etc.? I'm going to go to Elaine with this one to start.
It's a good question.
It's a hard question. It's a
really hard question to answer. The short answer, I guess, is yes, but the longer answer is no with a but. When we started, I don't see any issue with recording on your phone or your laptop or whatever. But for us, we wanted to try and make it as professional as possible, because I don't know if you've ever watched a film and the sound is off, or the picture isn't very clear, and that's all you're focusing on, or the music is bad. That's all you're focusing on in that film, instead of getting the enjoyment out of the film. So what we kind of wanted to do was make, or what I wanted to do was make the equipment as kind of as least of a screen between us and our audience as possible. So it's almost like we're in the room with you, telling you about this game and being enthusiastic about this game. And I think it's more engaging if it's easier to listen and see somebody. With regard to other things like software, I think editing software is useful to have if you can, because that allows you a lot more scope and a lot more flexibility with your videos. If you can see exactly everything laid out in front of you when you're reviewing it before you publish it, I think that's really very useful. And if you can sort of fiddle around with adding music and change the sound levels, because you don't want music that's super loud, or your voice to be super quiet, or anything like that, or the colors to be off, or every scene to have a different color profile, or the lighting is, it's correctable is what I'm trying to say, I think. So I think that's quite useful. We've built up equipment over time. We've been doing this for, 6 years or whatever it is now. And we started with just a handheld video camera. And no lights or anything. We filmed in daylight. We tried to film when the lighting was good, the sun was coming in the windows. So there are workarounds for things like that. But to have decent audio and visuals for us is important, because again, it takes away that level of barrier between us and the people that we want to make the content for.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that you started with a camera. Like, you don't have to start with big
absolutely
fancy.
Not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. No, yeah. Absolutely not. And that's what I said at the beginning. Like, anyone that wants to have a go and make something, please do. Use your phone, use your laptop, use the lighting coming in from the sun, use the microphone that's built into your laptop, whatever. If you just practice and practice and practice. Yeah. And it will come over time.
Yeah. And Rodney, you recommend starting in a basement, if I remember correctly.
Well, it worked for me. I'm still in it. It looks a little different, but this is the same basement. No, I really think Elaine gave a very comprehensive answer there. The one thing I would say, when I've been asked these kind of questions before, maybe someone will write and say, hey, Rodney, I want to get into making videos about board games. What equipment should I buy is almost always the first question, as opposed to other types of questions one might ask. And I always say to work with what you have, at least initially, because again, building on a previous question about, how do you make it not about money? Well, in this hobby, it's not so hard, because at the beginning, there's not going to be any money unless you're, unless you're Will
brutal
Wheaton.
truth coming from
truth.
Rodney.
Unless you're Will Wheaton or Geek and Sundry or something, you're probably not going to start by earning money. So I would hate to see anyone get into a bad financial situation buying all the latest and greatest equipment to then only discover after maybe a week or two of doing it, they really don't enjoy making the content. You might think you're going to enjoy it, and I don't want to discourage anyone from pursuing it. What I'm just saying is give yourself the breathing room to find out whether or not you like it before you invest a bunch of money. So if you have access to a camera already, great. If you have it in your phone, great. Use that first. And then if you continue to enjoy it, I think like Elaine said, you can build up to that. You can start to say, yeah, it's worth my time and energy to invest in more. Those are my quick thoughts on that. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I muted again. Yeah, I think we all can have a lot of conversation on that. Jess, you wanted to mention something.
Really, Rodney covered it. The fact is you need to do it, because a lot of people do ask, what should I invest in? Or I see people spend a lot of money because there's kind of that old trope of like, oh, if you want to start writing, buy the best pen you can, and that'll like motivate you. But I think that's a trap. I mean, this equipment is not cheap. And if you're going to invest that much money, there can also be that pressure, that added pressure that you don't want as you're starting out and maybe finding the pitfalls and trying to get comfortable. So I think that's actually more pressure than you need. Just getting over that first hump of like, can I do this? Am I comfortable? And seeing if it's something you can do. Just try. Just put it out there for you. Even if nobody's going to see it, even if you're not going to get that audience, it's going to take a while to build that audience up. And it's going to take a while for you to find your rhythm and where you fit. So just start, do that, and then see if that's something. I mean, you can get a ring light kit on an Amazon deal for like $40. So add that to your phone, just get started.
Yeah. And Mandy, you have more to add to this.
It's going to be super quick. Some really great points from everybody. When I started, it was my phone. And I didn't know anything about editing, even though I have friends in the industry. I knew nothing about it. So I did two things. Get to know Home Depot. I don't know if that's in the States or not, but some kind of home hardware store, because I made something that could hang a green screen. And I used like sheets that I got off Kijiji, or, so I got really crafty with a lot of the things that I was making. And there's lots of videos online that can show you how to make stands, lights. I just got some cheap lights at Home Depot to shine on that were really bright, and they were able to give that to me, and it didn't break the bank. So it wasn't super expensive. And hey, if I changed my mind later, I could use them around the house. The second thing is I networked. So for those who didn't know, I was in the fashion industry for a long time. I was a makeup artist for a long time. And so I had some contacts were in photography, film, and that sort of thing. And it was a lot of, hey, Mandy, we want to help you out. And so I was able to get used items from them. My friend said, here's Adobe Creative Suite, give it a try. So that's not available to everybody, but I highly encourage you to get involved in networking systems where there are photographers and these types of people. The schools. I went to a local college and we had students that wanted to volunteer to get some video editing hours for their course. So they helped me with some videos. So that's another way that you can work up toward getting content without breaking the bank.
Yeah. And we had Jonathan, you had a great comment. I'm going to put you up here on it so you can share.
Well, it's not my joke, but how do you make $1 million making board game content? You start with $2 million. I mean, I think that's kind of a joke in the board game industry, is that a lot of people are here doing it for because they're passionate about it, and not necessarily because it's a big
you
money
started
maker.
You have an interesting thing, because you started GeekDad and you've been going for a long time with GeekDad, and for you it's writing, but you still have had to purchase some equipment and some stuff to help you with GeekDad, and you've had to invest into it from a writing side as well.
Right, a little bit, and obviously, I would say writing is not nearly as expensive as making videos. But at least I like to take my own photos. I don't have a really nice camera, but I do have a digital camera. I don't just use my iPhone camera on that. Having a computer to write on, and having, for me, it's mostly about having the space. Being able to host board game nights and I do occasionally buy. I still spend a lot of money on Kickstarter for some reason, but I do buy some games, and but I do get review copies. But a lot of but we're not mostly at GeekDad. We're mostly not getting paid much to do it yet. We're still working towards that.
Yeah, and we have some great comments. This is really funny. Shannon, I'm not going to throw this up. I'm just going to read your comment really fast. Shannon in the private chat says, she is someone who's had a YouTube channel for 2 weeks and then decided it wasn't for her. So Rodney is right on point with that one. So I thought that was really interesting. The review copies, you briefly talked about review copies. We actually haven't had anybody ask about review copies yet in any of the questions that I have, which I find really funny. But I'm kind of going to go a little bit in that realm, and I'm going to start with Gates. Let me see if I can find the question. Here we go. Is there transparency in how much publishers sponsor content creators? How do content creators know how much to ask for when negotiating a sponsorship? This is so deep. There's so many layers in this. We're going to start with Gates. It is. Here, let me do this. And then maybe you come back and you're not frozen?
Maybe.
Oh, this is a new view. How did we get this? I like this. I like this more. We're going to stay here.
All right.
Well,
all we had to do was kick
Gates is off the island.
Can you still hear me though?
We can't hear you. Yeah,
okay.
You can just be a black box.
I'll just be a black box for a second. No, this is a really good question because this is actually one I've been approached with a lot more recently, and I don't think there's a lot of industry standards with this outside of the industry and more of a traditional marketing standpoint. There is, like, if you're going to approach somebody with a radio ad, there's an industry standard to like how many like words per minute cost X amount of money, and we just don't have that yet. But I think starting the conversation is really important. But starting publisher sponsor content is usually whenever somebody reaches out to me and they're like, hey, can I get a copy of game? If they don't lead with, hey, I want to do sponsorship, I'm like, awesome. I could definitely get you a review copy, or are you thinking about something sponsored? And then we start the discussion from there. So like we said previously, the discussion. And then past that, if there's any way I know, like having a media kit put together, and then this is now going into valuing your time, which I'm happy to coach like other content creators on, because I've been there as a freelancer before. And whenever you're starting sponsorship content, it's really how much time is it going to take for you to do this? How much time is it going to take for you to do that live stream and set up the equipment and the build up, and then break it down to paying yourself basically hourly? And I'm interested in the other content creators here, how you approach that yourselves. But no, it's just starting with a base price, and then being able to approach being like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, this is everything you're going to get for, let's just say, $500. Like, this is how big the audience is. This is what my engagement is. It's going to be recorded here. You guys can take the video and use it for B-roll. It's definitely just being able to find all the points of value a publisher can pull from. Because as a publisher, especially smaller studios, we don't sometimes have the time to shoot all the video. So like, if you can do the sponsored content for us and give us B-roll, we'll happily pay for that.
Yeah, or Amazon photos even.
Absolutely.
Amazon videos. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I believe that there's ways for you to monetize exactly what you're doing now. And just being able to pull those value points for the publisher. So.
Yeah. And I actually have an answer on this one as well. And that is, as far as the transparency between the publisher and the content creator, a lot of that is, you just have to have the conversation. Mm-hmm. A lot of content creators do undervalue themselves, but at the same time, a lot of content creators, to be really honest, they might not be at the stage yet where their quality or their production is there where they can charge money, but you can offer other things. You don't have to offer money. You can offer your enthusiasm, right? Like you can make a video and it can be super enthusiastic and we love it so much, and that like we'll put it on our website and link back to you. Like we will post it for you on social media everywhere. And so that's kind of one of those things where like you create content about a video that's very good. We will like it and share it, and we will mention it in our newsletters and all this other stuff. And we can help you build your support. We can help build your fan base that way to help you build up to the point where you are there with either your content creation, like the assets that you're creating, and getting to that professional level where what you are producing is something where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to pay you for that. We have, so for example, with HABA, there's a family that does written reviews. They have 5 kids from, I think the youngest is now 1, like it's from 1 to 11. The family was made for HABA. It's perfect. And they do written reviews and her photos are amazing. And so we pay her for all of her photos that she takes. So she takes way more photos than she actually uses in the reviews. And then we pay for all of the photos so that we can use them across all of our media. So she might use 2 or 3 of what she takes, and then we'll take them and use, everything we like. And so that's another example of, she started making the reviews, we started supporting it, she got better at photography, and we were like, holy smokes, can we use these? Can we put these in print ads? Like, will you let us do that? So, you can build to the point where you're talking about money sponsorship. It's not always about money in that rate. There's a lot of conversation about this one. Well, not a lot, but there is some conversation on this one. Mandy, you have a great comment about this, because there is the other thing about like transparency in regards to the conversation outside of an individual publisher and content creator. So Mandy, you have a comment on that one.
So for those who can't see it, I wrote a comment that rates for what people are getting, content creators are getting paid for what they're doing, it needs to be standardized. Right now, there is no set kind of rate. Hey, if you're doing this type of content, this is around what the pricing should be. I do find that that's a bit of an issue. And this is coming from someone, like I said, I used to be a makeup artist, and we always had a standard rate of what we'd be charged for example, doing a full face of makeup. I had been doing it for a long time, and let's be clear, I was very good at what I was doing. So I charged kind of top tier prices, but then people who are just coming in, maybe it might have been a bit less. And I feel there needs to be some kind of scale there that we need to settle on. Otherwise, I feel like some people are not necessarily going to be compensated fairly.
Yeah, definitely. And we have so many questions, and I feel like I want to try and find one. Nope, that's not the view. That's the view I like. Okay, there we go. I was like, which button got us to where? Do I have to kick Gates again to get us to that view? Okay. And also Gates is now back. Yay. Does anybody else have an answer on this one with transparency and stuff like that? Because there's also the content. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna trigger probably all of us. The difference between a review and a preview. And that kind of comes into the conversation of sponsorship, right? Like, because previews are sponsored, should be sponsored. Reviews, right? I mean, somebody grab the mic.
What?
Gates. Oh, okay. Sorry. Gates raised their hand. Sorry.
No, we talk about this all the time at Leader. Especially when we were approaching, like with the Oath Kickstarter. Cole Worley has a journalism background from college, and it's really, ethically speaking, I want to talk, like, ethically speaking, for me to pay you something and it to be a review, ethically, I believe that is not right. So whenever we're partnering for something that is like a preview, where it's like, hey, this is a how-to video. There's no opinion attached to it or anything like that. If there's promotion outside of it, of course, or that you're sharing that you're review or that you're making that content, that's fine. But if there is any like money being exchanged and that there's an opinion attached to it, we make it very clear that it has to be a certain type of content which we are funding. So that's kind of the line where it's at. I cannot fund reviews. Ethically speaking, I cannot fund reviews. And then also we can go down the whole of, you have to post whether it's a sponsored ad. There's certain laws in place, certain consumer laws in place for that. So I do want to touch base with that. Like, as a publisher, we need to be very highly aware of what is a review, what is a preview, how is that content going to be put down, and of course, going back to, we need to compensate people for their work. So if they are doing a how to play video for free, that needs to be compensated past that. So I will pass the mic.
Yeah. Jess, I know that you have this conversation a lot with content creators, especially dealing with Kickstarter stuff. Sorry.
I do.
So we'll just jump to Jess real fast on this one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my time actually when I have my Kickstarter or publisher hat on is educating content creators that I cannot pay you for a review. As Gates touched on, there is legal ramifications for that. The FCC regulates that, and we cannot pay you to give your opinion about the game. So a lot of very well-meaning content creators will offer that. Say, but I already know I love the game. I promise you it's going to be a positive review, and they're saying review, and just go ahead and pay me for this. Here's my pay structure, and I'll tell everyone I like it. And we will not do that. Absolutely not. That's not something we can do. So definitely be aware of that as you're starting to create content, that if your opinion is going to be given, positive, negative, neutral, doesn't matter. If your opinion is going to be given about the game, it cannot be a paid review. Now, there's a little bit of a gray line. If you're receiving a review copy, that's different. That's considered, you're provided the product to provide your opinion. And that is a gray line that is definitely, currently something that, is done in this industry. So that, you may receive a review copy. You can absolutely talk about it and give your opinion then. But if you're doing paid content, what that's going to look like is a preview without your opinion, a how to play, a live playthrough, something that's content that could be used for a Kickstarter or for the publisher's website. Anything that's promotional material like that should not include your opinion, and you have to be careful of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to jump to Jonathan real fast, because as a written reviewer that's been doing this for years, you've written a lot of stuff. And have you ever, what kind of sponsorship have you ever engaged with or anything like that? Because you just do reviews, right?
Right. We do. Yeah, I do reviews, and my reviews actually do include a how to play section where I just try to, I like explaining games. I try to boil down the, how to play into my own words, and kind of gloss through it a little bit. And I think for me, that helps me to just have that structure of I look at the components, I look at the how to play, and then I also give here's what it feels like to me to play this game, right? Here's some of the things I liked about it, some things I didn't like about it. All of those, I would say the majority of what I write about board games is not paid. So I do get a review copy in most cases, or a prototype if it's a Kickstarter. And I'm not getting paid for those. We do have people will do sponsored posts. I have done very few of those myself. And they're not, we're not a board game site specifically. So anything that is a sponsored post has right at the top, this is a sponsored post, and when I've done sponsored posts, it's more like, hey, we're going to tell you what the game is. That opinion piece, I might do a how to play. I might say, here's what's going to be included in the game. Here's what it's about. There's less of the, hey, I think this is great, or I don't think this is great. It's more of a objective facts about the post or about the game. And then we also do, as far as review copies, we do also always mention at the bottom, a disclosure, whether or not we received a copy of the game or a prototype of the game for review.
Legally, I believe, especially on content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then also I think with written stuff, I think you have to, as a content creator, disclose if you were provided the copy by a publisher. So if you are a content creator and you are receiving review copies, you do need to disclose that was sent to you by the publisher.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Rodney, you had some feedback on this, and Rodney, you also, because your content, you started unpaid, just making about games that you loved. Yeah. And so now you
Right,
are
yep.
full-time professional. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm full time, and this topic is near and dear to my heart. I always find it really interesting. I mean, it always comes up every few months. A cycle will come up with conversation about paid reviews or not. And first, I would want to say I completely understand the concern over a paid review. There are ethical lines there. There's disclosure lines. There's legal lines, and there are problems with a paid review. The part of the conversation that doesn't come up quite as often, and I wish it would when this topic came up, was, okay, we agree with that. I think most people are on the same page about that. But now what do we do with all these content creators who are putting in all this time and effort and creating this very valuable work, which arguably is making money for everybody else, even the consumer who's watching that review and then is not going to spend their money more wisely or save their money and not spend it because that game's not going to be a good fit for them. All those other people are benefiting in some financial way, except for the reviewer. And that's going to be a problem in the long run if you want to create sustainable professional growth. Now, there are alternatives. You can have Patreons and Kickstarters and things like that. But none of those are necessarily guaranteed solutions either, because at least from my own experience, about 4% of your following will support you during a fundraising effort. So there's always going to be like a little bit of a shortfall there. Now, I'm fortunate. I make tutorial reviews, tutorial videos, no reviews. So it's never been an issue to get paid for it, at least as far as my audience has been concerned. But I empathize with reviewers, and I wonder, like, how do you keep making all this incredible content without financial support after a certain point in time? That's my little piece to add in there.
Yeah. And we actually have a great follow-up question, and it's too long to put into the banner, so I'm trying to trim it really fast. Oh no, did I lose it by clicking that? I did. Okay. It's from Awfully Fun Games. They've asked it in the chat. It's such a great follow-up. I'm just gonna put it on the screen as much as I can. Okay, cool. That will work. Sorry. This is from Awfully Fun Games in the chat. The question is, from the publisher side, is it frowned upon for content creators to talk about rates openly? Not to be specific of who paid what, obviously, but if I just make a vlog where I say my average rate is X. And actually, I'm going to jump to Shannon on this one because I think you might have some good insight on that.
I think that content creators absolutely should be talking to each other about their rates. I think that's the only way in this industry that content creators are going to figure out what they should be charging. And that really helps the publishers out in the end as well, because then when someone approaches us with their rate, we will be able to tell at a glance whether that rate works for what we're asking for. I think that it's just really smart for content creators to be talking to each other. And it honestly wouldn't be our place as a publisher to get in the way of that conversation. And I'm going to
open kind of the floor on this one. I have to remember I'm going to this view now. I'm going to open the floor on this one because there's been some great conversations in the private chat about this. Mandy, you had a great comment. Rodney, you had a great comment about this. And if you all want to jump in, otherwise I'll just read. Mandy, you said some great points about reviewers banding together to discuss rates. Why so secretive? Rodney, you mentioned that you changed your rates once you heard what Geek and Sundry was charging.
Yeah, it's always been difficult to know what to charge. I didn't have someone else to look to who is also doing tutorial videos for board games. I could say, oh, okay, well, I'm approaching where they're at, so I should charge about what they're getting, right? And as you say, people don't generally talk about it publicly. Mm-hmm. I've always been, I don't know if secretive is the right word, but I've never known, like, I don't know how sensitive to be about it because I'm also discussing effectively the publisher's business too on some level there. But yeah, when I heard what Geek and Sundry was making, I went, wow, okay, they're charging way more than me. And yet in many cases, I'm getting more views on my content than them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not charging what they charge still, but I was able to recalibrate and go, okay, I think I'm at least worth this much then. And that was helpful. So I can appreciate it being helpful to other people. There's just so many factors at play. There's audience reach, there's consistency of content, there's your penetrate. There's so many things to measure. It's hard to know what a consistent rate would look like for everybody, but there's got to be a way to get closer to a standard for sure.
Yeah. Well, and as a content creator, as a publisher, I see a lot of people's rate sheets, and it's very obvious to me when someone is not talking to anybody else that does the kind of content they are, because the quotes are kind of everywhere. Or I see where somebody has maybe quoted themselves, either sometimes, mostly, it's very, very low compared to what their content should be, especially when you compare it to somebody else. So your example of Geek and Sundry with yours, yes. The other thing is like guilds do exist. There are some groupings of content creators there. I know in the writing space, there's a great guild that recently started called the Writers Guild. And they have different conversations about, content being made and media being made. I know there's photographers that will also talk about this. I don't know of any group of like video people that are together in like a guild or something like that are talking about that. Maybe Punchboard Media, I'm not really sure. But Mandy, you have a comment on this. Maybe a group?
Yeah, there are other, and I'm part of a few groups that do videography and that sort of thing, not specifically board games, but videography in general. And every industry has a set of guidelines, or at least rates that are acceptable for certain types of work. And I do think as content creators, we need to discuss it. And it just comes across like, well, I don't really want someone to know what I'm being paid. And no, but if we talk about it, then we can expect these are the standard kind of ranges of rate for the type of work that you're doing. My day job, I work for the federal government. I'm a teacher. Guess what? If you want to know the range of what I'm paid, you can head over to the Treasury Board and see how much I possibly could make. It's very transparent, and that's how it is. So talking about money is not a weird thing. It's open. And I think we need to kind of step toward that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I could go so far on that, especially currently right now with kind of what's happening in parts of the world. But we are going to move forward to another question. I have to find it because I got sidetracked by this fantastic one from this one. But I believe I was going to Shannon because this is a great, here we go, found it. I think this is a great one for the publishers, and if content creators, if you have feedback on what you would like. So I would love to hear from Jonathan and Elaine on this question too, eventually, on what you're looking for in this kind of thing. But are there any resources for receiving press releases from companies or places where a new content creator can access them without going to each company's site? I know the broad answer on that one would be no, but we can kind of talk about what you do and maybe why that is and that kind of thing, and what maybe those press releases have or what we're looking for. So Shannon, starting with you.
Yeah, so usually we'll send out a press release when we are ramping up to do a Kickstarter. So most recently, our Cloudspire expansions, we sent out a press release. And I really sent that out to all of my content creator contacts. So anyone that had reached out to me in the past year looking for a review copy, whether I said yes or no, I sent them this press release in case they were interested, because clearly they're interested in our games. So I would say that reaching out to the publishers that you're interested in, asking to get put on their contact list, even if they don't have a review copy for you, it will hopefully lead to them sending you a press release in the future and maybe working together in the future. And just be really clear that you are really excited about what they're making and that you want to hear what's coming up.
Yeah. And then I know I'll just quickly on this one, from my perspective, we have on our website, we actually do have a section where you can go. And once we know you are press and you have the info, we actually give you a login and you can go, and that login will actually give you access to all of the media assets that we have for any games that we have announced. So I know that we're not the only publisher that does that. I know that other publishers have that. So if you're looking for like a box art of a game, or if you're looking for a lifestyle photo of a game, I know that we have that available there. Funko does that. Yeah, Mandy was mentioning Funko does that. I know Fireside Games does that. I did not come up with the idea on my own. I totally stole it. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else has feedback on that one. Gates, do you want to talk about what Leader Games does?
Yeah, as far as like an overall place where you can get press releases from a bunch of publishers, like it will still have to be individual contacts that you make. But usually when somebody requests any information from me as far as press, I put them on our press list, put their email, and then we have an email list. Once we start talking about a new game or whether we're ramping up, that's the way that we go about it. I know we recently launched our new website, and we're getting to create a section that is more for the content creators, for us to have all of our media kits there and stuff like that. So it is still just having to reach out to the publishers initially.
Well, and part of the reason that
yeah.
I personally don't want to just have my content out where anybody can grab it is because as a publisher, I want to have some sort of relationship with you. If you're getting access to that content that I'm making and professionally doing, just so that I kind of have an understanding of like when something's going out, who might be doing something. Because if I have a set press list and I know, okay, everybody on this list was sent this game, like release information, I know in like a week or a 2 or a day or whatever, if I go to their website, I'm kind of looking like, did they mention the thing that I emailed them? Like I can kind of follow up on that without actually asking you, as a creator specifically, hey, did you do anything on that? But if it was just out on a website that anyone could access at any time and like it was grouped with a bunch of publishers, it would be really hard for me to go back and like find and log who did what. My Google foo is strong, but at a certain point, like I don't want to be dealing with Google alerts for the end of time. Like I want to make sure that, it's relating to that kind of stuff. The other thing that I was going to see, did anybody else want to follow up on this one? There's been some questions. I know, Jonathan, you wanted to loop back really quick on the Writers Guild. So we can do that really fast because somebody asked about the Writers Guild. So Jonathan, if you want to talk really quickly about the Writers Guild that I mentioned.
Yeah, so the writers, it's called the Tabletop Writers Guild. You can find them on Twitter. They do have a website right now as well. It was started by Ryan from the Cardboard Republic. I have recently been put on. I'm one of the directors, but I'm still figuring out that role. But I do know if you go to the website, you can put in an application, and I think they've gotten a lot of applications, so they're trying to get through them because we're all in lockdown and working from home and figuring out how to get through that sort of stuff. But it's basically some people who we have a Slack channel and we kind of discuss things about the industry, about writing reviews, and share content with each other. Just basically like here's some of the things that we're working on, kind of ideas about how to keep your content fresh. So
well, and I actually had a meeting with the Writers Guild the other day. One of the things that as a publisher I really liked what the Writers Guild did is they wanted to reach out and have a publisher meeting with me, and instead of having to schedule a publisher meeting with every single writer or reviewer in the guild, they just scheduled one time slot with me, and anybody in the guild that wanted to join could join. And so it was very nice from my perspective just to be able to talk to multiple people at once and not just a one-on-one and then another one-on-one where I repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So yeah, I appreciate that. I want to quickly, go ahead.
The URL, it's tabletopwritersguild.org. So
there we go. I'm going to spin it a little bit. We've had some amazing questions that talk about the subject of kind of like confidence and in your content and of yourself. And so let me quickly find that question because it was really great. And it's been asked a couple different ways. Now I have to find it. Oh no, did I not put it in here? Okay. Everybody do a song and dance.
There was one in the main sheet there, I think, T, about comparing yourself at the beginning to all the other creators who are already out there.
And I tried to put it in, and I think it was too long, and so I was struggling to get it into work. But I guess I'll start with this one. We'll start with the reverse why I get that question in there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Elaine still. Sorry, I'm throwing you a curveball. As you gain popularity as a content creator, what do you do to prevent yourself from falling into elitism? What keeps you grounded? Oh, you're muted still. Hang on. There you go. Nope.
Am I
You're
here
now. There we go.
Hooray! Okay, good. That is a very good question. I think it depends very much on your personality, and it's the kind of reverse of the other question that I think was being posed about, do you feel kind of shy and like an imposter? Do you get imposter syndrome? And I think for me, I don't think I will fall into this elitism unless, you know, I become the queen tomorrow or something. I don't think so, because I didn't grow up in an environment. I grew up in a supportive environment, and one that encouraged everyone to try, but that didn't kind of over I don't know what the word is really, like, didn't give you too much if you did something good. It was always like, oh, you got a B, well, that's great, well, what did you do wrong? Like, so I think I have that in the back of my head at all times of how can I do better all the time. There's never a level that I feel like I'm going to reach it and go, okay, that's it now, like that's going to be great, my life is sorted. There will always be something else to reach. And I think that's the same for a lot of people, particularly in this industry, because it's not a very kind of, it's a wide industry, but it's not a particularly popular one. It's still, we feel like it's really popular because we're all in it, but it's still relatively niche. It's not like a movie star or a rock star or whatever. Anyone that is doing this, it's still quite niche. So there's never going to be that kind of rocketing to stardom, and also there's a lot of hard work that goes into this, and I think that keeps you quite grounded, that you realize how much effort you're making for something. There's never this kind of quick reward for anything, and I think that helps to keep you from getting too big-headed about anything.
There's the spins, right? It's hard to get a lot ahead. And the other spin on this question is this one right here. How do you get out of your own head? I edited this down. It was pretty long. How do you get out of your own head and just get started without judging yourself too harshly, aka imposter syndrome, successful geek? So this is, I mean, it's the other side of the coin. I think you can have a conversation about both simultaneously because they're very, yin and yang. But Jess, you had a comment on this one.
Absolutely. This is something I've struggled with a lot in doing this. I've been in the industry for years, but very spottily putting out content because it is hard to deal with the imposter syndrome. So to the first question about avoiding elitism, I think that's really rare in this space. This is a niche market, and the people who are making content, even the really big names, are still, if you talk to them behind the scenes, questioning what they're doing. Are they doing it right? Making mistakes. To that point, I love, and I reached out to Rodney when he would post his mistakes like a year ago. He would make mistakes in video, but he wouldn't take them down. He'd leave them and be like, yep, I completely messed up. Video's gone. I'll come back with it when I fixed it. And that was really helpful to me, seeing that, I'm not the only one who's messing this up or getting a rule wrong when I'm trying to teach it. Or, maybe I was editing the audio and it was a second off and I didn't notice. Whatever it is, that was good to see from other content creators that I wasn't alone. So that risk of elitism, I think that's probably pretty slim. I think more often we're struggling with imposter syndrome. And I think people would be surprised, that at conventions and places that we get together, how many times we're saying to each other, am I doing this right? Am I good at this? Is this even valuable? But the other thing I wanted to touch on here, because I think it brings up the point of, there's also the saying, never read the comments.
Yeah.
Oh,
super true.
Yeah, don't.
Even if they're nice.
Don't read the comments. And because the good ones, you'll have majority good comments, but it won't matter to your brain. You're going to see, 90% good comments, and the only thing that's going to sink in, the only thing that's going to matter to you is that one negative comment that you see, and it's going to haunt you. You're going to dream about it. You're going to think about it. Every time you go live again or go to record, you're going to be second guessing yourself. And that's just going to make it worse if it's because you laugh too much or say, or have certain phrases that you repeat. It makes it cement in your mind. And I hate to get super serious with this, but this is something that for me is something that I think newer content creators need to be aware of, that you need to be in a good headspace to put yourself in a public arena like this, because there are people who don't know how to not hit send when they're commenting on things, and they will say some very hurtful things to you that will maybe make you stop. It's happened to me over and over again. And the last thing I'll say on it is, I do live streaming. So I'm live playing a game with other people. And in that Slack channel of Patreon, because it's a Patreon, Heavy Cardboard's run by Patreon, the people are super supportive and they track win rates. So my win rate on the show is 70% of the games I'm in, I win. But you would not believe it from the content, the comments on the YouTube videos, because you get into those live streams, and anytime I lose, even if I came second place by a point or two, there's comments of, does she even play games? Does she know how to play? Like, why is she there? The guys can lose, but if I lose, I'm torn to shreds over it. And that, it impacts you. Then you're playing and you're so, like, I have this mantle of, I'm a girl, I need to represent, I need to make it seem like women can play games. So these are the things that can be really, really hard. And for people watching content creators, be nice. These are human beings. Like they're putting themselves out there. And we've already talked about, this isn't a money-making endeavor. We're not millionaires. We're not making money on this. So you have, I get, you have the right to free speech. You have the right to your comments, but come on, be kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rodney, you have a thing on this one, but.
Well, I did, but my God, like now I've got like 25 new things in my head.
I know, me too.
Like,
I have so many
incredible
things.
Listening, Jess, my heart breaks listening to you talk about that, because I think the pressure, especially that women are in this hobby, particularly around seeing your game being assessed by a viewing audience, and you obviously illustrated the difference that you experience as a woman versus what the same people in the same show as you, other men on the show aren't dealing with, right? Anyway, you said it better than I can, but the thing I wanted to say was, going back to the elitism thing, it's really important to remember that nobody really gets. I know I'm one of the Canadians on here, so this might sound a little socialist, but nobody gets where they're going to go without a whole bunch of people helping. I Watch It Played isn't where it is now because of me. I mean, I play a part in it, obviously, but it's a lot of people who got me there. So I think that can help keep you grounded if you remember that kind of sort of gratitude that you need to have around there. Also, it helped me when I first started back in 2011. I wrote this little list, Rodney's Rules, and these are just things I wrote to try to keep myself mindful about who I wanted to be as a public figure, if that ever came about, and also just behind the scenes as well as I made decisions about things, because I knew in the heat of the moment I might be tasked to deal with certain issues or work things. And how was I going to handle it? Well, I wanted to have something written down that was like a guideline, a little bit of like a 10 Commandments kind of thing for me to follow, right? And that's helped a lot along the way. And I really also, I want to echo what you said, Jess, the importance of in addition to ignoring the negative comments, don't listen to the positive comments too much. Like, you've got to rein it in, because it's not, if you have a bunch of people saying a bunch of nice things to you, you can start to believe your own press. And that is also maybe as bad as listening to too much of the negative stuff too seriously, because people ultimately are only seeing a small sliver of who you are. Even when they're saying something wonderful and beautiful and kind about you, they're only seeing one small sliver about you. And so they, don't take it too seriously, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I have a lot to add on this, especially as my time as a content creator. I want to be really brief on that one, and then I want to throw to Jonathan really briefly. I had a situation a few years ago where in a community, people just decided they didn't like me. There was like a whole private Facebook group that was formed about like just harassing me for a time period. I was doxxed. It was not great. And then I went to a Gen Con, and my personality, because I vlog and walk around at Gen Con and I'm on camera and I was recognizable, was like happy and go lucky and all this other stuff. And I was walking around Gen Con and I was trying to be that. And I just was so exhausted. I actually had a breakdown and like Steve was with me, my husband, and he had to take me to a side point so I could just like be a human for a while, because I hadn't realized after dealing with all the situation and the mean comments, and then also dealing with people being so freaking nice. I had people come up to me from Brazil that were like, "Oh my God, we love you. Can we take selfies?" And like the dichotomy between those two was just like breaking my brain, and I couldn't deal with it. And so I just had to like calm down. So it's one of those things where like, we're people. There's a lot of psychological stuff that goes into this and putting ourselves on camera and things like that. So you have to remember that. And then at the same time, this industry is huge. When you look at the number of content creators, you can look at the games that are being talked about, the publishers that are being talked about. And Jonathan, you had a great comment on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps you humble when you introduce yourself to a publisher and they haven't heard of you. And I think it's for me as a written reviewer, my face is not out there all the time, and so I like to be a little surprised, I think, if people do recognize me, just when I approach them. But I've been GeekDad has been around for longer than I have, right? Like that I've been writing for it, but I've been writing for it for 11 years now. I never assumed that a publisher has.
And just to like, I'm going to boost you for a second. GeekDad was so big for a while. You were in Wired magazine.
It started off as one of it started off on wired.com as one of their blogs. And so for a while, so that was also like, we felt like when I joined, it was like, yeah, they had, audience coming in from Wired. And so definitely that name recognition was helpful for building our audience. And then when we went independent, it's like, oh, well, once you don't have that Wired name, we found out like, okay, well, some people still really, knew of GeekDad and loved it. And some people are like, oh, who are you? So I think for me that helps, just basically saying, okay, when I introduce myself, I introduce what GeekDad is, and some people will stop me and say, yes, I know of it. And some people don't. And I'm not going to walk into it just kind of going, oh, well, they should know who I am. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are just running out of time. There's so many great questions. I still have a ton in the queue. This is super great. I've actually posed my panelists a question to pick between the two last questions for the last question. If we run over a little bit, that's okay. So I think they're leaning towards what I'm leaning towards, but I wanted to say really quickly, we have had so many great questions. I realize now, I said earlier in the comments in the private chat we have, I could have made this into 2 panels. I think right now I could have made this into like a day-long seminar. And maybe that's something we do on a future thing. If you're interested in finding out more about this information content, we can obviously, I know that this great panelist, they're willing to talk and help more. Maybe we can do like a day seminar online thing on one weekend and do a bunch of different workshops or something like that. I don't really know. But if you're interested in that, please let us know on Twitter or the social media for everybody that's here in the hosted area. The panelists. I know there's so many great perspectives from the publisher side. There's so many great perspectives from the content creator side. And the questions that I asked was basically, do we want to talk about like Patreon and Ko-Fi and that kind of stuff, or do we want to talk about life balance? And I think that life balance is hands down winning. And Rodney, speaking of life balance, you want to go first. So Rodney, go ahead and go first.
Yeah, I'm going to go first because I have to leave early because of life balance. This is a tough one. Look, it's really, really important to figure out your work life and everything else life. This is especially keen to me because, I said earlier, no one gets to do kind of what we're doing, or I'll speak for myself. I don't get to do what I'm doing with a whole bunch of other people helping. And one of the biggest support system I had was my family, because in the early days, I was not earning a living doing this. And basically my wife was, and she was bearing the burden while I figured out how to make this work. And so it's very important for me not to abuse that opportunity I've been given and try to balance things with my family. But it's very, very challenging because when you're doing something that you love to do, you will find endless amounts of energy for it in a way that I never had for previous jobs. I just did the job. I punched in, I punched out, I was done with it. With this, I never want to stop. I love doing what I do so much. So you have to regulate your own time somehow. I don't have all the answers. I wish I was sticking around so I could get the answers from the other panelists here who are going to tell me how to have a better work-life balance. But my son has to go to work, and I told him I would drive him, so I need to leave. I want to thank T so much for running this panel and giving us an opportunity to try, hopefully, to help people with some of the questions they have. And I'm so honored to have been able to do this with so many other great panelists here. Sorry I have to leave early, but I loved spending this time with you. It was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, Rodney. You have been voted off the island.
Okay.
Rodney, thank you so much. I know you can still hear us, but go do life balance things. And I think we all have comments on this one. I know that the publishers have a different perspective, and in the phrasing for what we are expecting from content creators with that life work balance and that kind of stuff. I wanted to throw really quickly, I don't know, Shannon or Gates, if you have input on this from like a publisher standpoint, like if you have opinions on the content creators that you're using and you're working with and red flags or anything like that. I don't know. Gates, you're nodding your head a lot. Yeah, I don't know.
Life balance is a thing I talk about a lot, even for myself, even just like getting a step into the industry. It was a lot of late hours. And like Rodney said, support from family and everything like that. And I definitely see that. And then also as from a content perspective, if you're a content creator, you have a platform, you are influencing a group of people, and it is my job to make sure that you're healthy and you're putting out healthy things, and work-life balance is one of those things. And if you're getting burnt out all the time, it leads to inconsistencies, and establishing something that's healthy and actually promoting healthy behaviors too. We look at that. I do look at that, and I make sure that we're all aligned in the same way, because not even for our own selves, like with us publishing games, like we also need to take a break, but content creators, you do need to also, because there's sometimes if I'm going to email you and I don't hear back for 2 weeks and then you're back and like, it's really inconsistent, I'm kind of worried. But as far as work-life balance, to spend this to more positive, it's really finding a good community that not only keeps you accountable in what you're putting out, but taking care of yourself. Whether that be a group of friends or more content creators that are going through the exact same thing that you are, so you do not feel alone, I think is really important. I know that's important, especially on the publisher side. Like we all talk, we're like, man, that Kickstarter, did you get some sleep? Or like right now, all of us would be at Gen Con being like, okay, I only got 3 hours of sleep last night. Do you need a coffee? And having that, I think, is really important with the work-life balance too. But yeah.
I had 4 hours of sleep last night. Haven't had coffee yet. Gen Con turns out I have not had coffee yet. This is
I'll DoorDash you one.
Oh, please. No. But Shannon, you have another great point on this one for the content creators and as a perspective as a publisher.
Yeah, so just as a person, I would say it's really important to know your limits and to know when you need to unplug from what's happening. And as a content creator, even if you're small, I would say it's a smart thing to do to set up separate social accounts for your work versus your personal. Because if you have integrated the two, as I have, it can be really hard to unplug from work when you're trying to do personal stuff, because it's all connected. And then the other part from a publisher side that I wanted to touch on is just be honest to yourself and the publishers about how much time you have and how much time it's going to take you to put out the content. So I'm okay waiting for your content as long as you've been realistic with me about how long that content's going to take and are keeping me up to date. As soon as you've promised a timeline and then blown past that and aren't communicating with me, that's when it can get frustrating. So we understand that you're people, because we're people too, and we're doing the same things. Just communicate and it's all good.
Yeah, I've been at a convention and I've had a press meeting with somebody and they come to my booth just laden with press copies, and they're having the conversation, and I'm like, okay, so what kind of turnaround are we looking at? And they look me dead in the eye and they say, we'll have it out in a week. And I'm just like, are you sure these aren't your review copies? Have you said this same statement to every publisher that you have gotten these copies from? Because I'm pretty confident you will not get this all done in a week. So, be realistic with yourself. I would prefer a realistic timeline way more than a super fast timeline. Like, if you tell me, well, looking at the stuff and being realistic, we're looking at 3 months to get a review out, and like even just like a written review or a vlog or something like that, I would be like, cool, okay, well, is there any way you could do it a little sooner? Not a big rush. If not, I really would like it, in 2 months, maybe. Sometimes I'm like, that's fine. I don't want you to talk about this for 4 months because it got delayed. Like, just be honest, be forthright with the publisher, and keep your own limitations in mind. I actually want answers from everyone on this one because it's so important. I'm going to jump to Jonathan. I'm going to jump to you next because you have a very unique perspective that kind of Rodney was talking on, that you can build on your own perspective on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad. My oldest is 16 now, and I have been staying at home since she was born. I've got 3 kids. And so I started writing for GeekDad, partly, as a hobby to, be able to interact with other adults. I got into gaming and decided, hey, I'm going to try, writing about games. I write about some other stuff as well. I will say, like, having what I write about be about sharing geeky interests with my kids lines up pretty well as far as that goes. But there's ups and downs to it. It does mean, like, sometimes I can feel like I'm always on, like, I'm interacting with my kids, but how can I turn this into a blog post? And I realized, I needed to narrow down. I used to write about a much broader area and lots of different topics, and I've kind of narrowed down in the past few years where I mostly write about board games and I write about books, and then every so often I'll write about other stuff, and that kind of helps me a little bit. I think for my kids, they've grown up getting to play a lot of games, getting to see some cool stuff that I get to review, and at the same time, there are times where I'm like, I feel like I'm just down here writing instead of hanging out with them, where because I need to record this thing that I just did with them, right? Definitely I'm very fortunate that we rely on my wife's income. I don't need to make money making board game content, which is how I got into it. Was it's a hobby that has grown, and it's, as far as like the balancing friends and hobbies and what I do is like, well, this basically is my primary hobby. This is what I do, but it does definitely help that I can do this with my kids, and they enjoy. Two out of 3 of them enjoy playing a lot of games. The third one, likes hanging out with my game night friends when they're over.
Oh yes, she's a hoot. I've actually Jonathan lives in Portland, Oregon, and I didn't know that until I moved here. And I've actually come and played games with Jonathan before the times. And his kids are fantastic. Your middle is maybe my favorite to play games with because she's just a hoot. But your youngest is also surprisingly destructive and competitive when she plays. Yeah. Destructive of like my game assets, I will say, when I play. But Jess, I want feedback on everybody. So we're going to go to Jess next on this one. Work-life balance. How do you do it?
Well, this is a good overlap too, because I have a heck ton of kids too. I won't even try to count them, but and T has met
they
my
are
kids,
delightful
so
as well.
They know how.
For me, they were great.
It depends. Not. Yeah, they love you. So, but for me, everything is about overlap. I try to kind of cheat my way through work-life balance by doing a little bit of what Jonathan talked about. So I don't necessarily just play family games with my kids. I will play, PAX Premier 2.0 or, whatever game I need to look at or review or prep for a live stream, I will engage them with it. I'll be like, all right, sit down, let's do this, and go through it with them. And since I've never really coddled them with games, they've risen to the occasion. So they're pretty good at it at this point. I don't win as much as I would like anymore. So that basically that overlap with my kids. But as Jonathan said, that still creates this tricky thing of I'm still working when I'm with them, and I need to maybe make notes or do something quickly thereafter. Meetings will be all times of the day. So sometimes I'm with my kids, but I make that known. So the other overlap I have is I wanted to just be all games all the time as far as my work life. So I started working with publishers and doing marketing with them and diving into the publishing side. And doing that allows me to play the games and work with the publishers and get paid for it. Because, we've already touched on content creation is not, an easy thing to make a living at. So I kind of created that redundancy where I could be doing content creation, but for a publisher, working with that publisher, that type of thing, and still developing those kind of relationships in the industry that I need for content creation. So it's overlap for me is just try to get everything to kind of piece together. I do that well sometimes and not so well others. So if it gets to a point, I think we all fail at this.
Yeah. I think we're all nodding. We're all like, yes.
And so you just have to monitor that and be careful of that and really watch yourself. Because, I talked about like, you need to make sure you're in a really good mental space for this to work. So watching that, and I miss it all the time. I'll be like, exhausted or this, and I'll just try to push through. Sometimes it's just better, take the break, communicate with the publisher, say, as T said, you know what, I told you a week, but this is actually, I've hit this roadblock and it's going to be this date instead. If you communicate with me on the publisher side, then I can adjust my calendar. I can prepare for that. And sometimes not a big deal at all. It's just knowing that so I can maybe adjust a few other things. So communication, you're going to want it too from the publishers. Do that for them as well. And you'll be fine.
Yeah. The biggest thing with just communicate. Like if you need to push it back, communicate. If you, and the other thing that I want to say is like, it's from a publisher standpoint, it's much better than me hunting you down and then you ignoring me because you're embarrassed or feel guilty. Like that is annoying me more. If you just send me a sentence and say, I'm so sorry, life has hit the fan, I can't do this right now, I will let you know when I can handle it, that's fine. That is so much better than crickets, right? On the content creation side with work-life balance, when I was a creator, I tried to do a video a week and it hit a point in my life where I just couldn't do it. My work-life balance was too crazy. I wasn't able to do it. I had a Patreon and I felt super guilty to provide people. And I felt like every time I had any conversation with my followers, I was apologizing. And what I eventually realized is I just had to step back and do one apology that says, hey guys, life is really crazy right now. I need to step back. I need to focus on me. Sorry, I'll get to it when I can. And then after I made that statement, I worked really hard to not apologize for taking time for myself. And I think that's super important. Elaine, I want to jump to you on this one.
Yeah, everyone has made like brilliant points really about this, and from our perspective, we're pretty lucky now that I was able to go full time, with no pun included. But before that, still we've got really understanding friends, so that's really lucky because we hang out with our friends and say we have to play this game. They're like, oh, but I want to play. No, you're not. You're playing this one for us because we need to play it for work. So they're really understanding and really kind. So we kind of get around the friends, hanging out with friends, and also working at the same time. But yeah, we are more lucky now, but it has been hard to make a transition over to being kind of in the house all the time and being our own bosses. For me, what I have found is that because the hobby more and more became my work, I was still working full time up until Christmas, but because it became more and more work, I found myself, I needed to find another, not necessarily hobby, but something that gave me time to myself. So yoga, meditation, taking a bath, something like that just gave me time out of my actual job at the time, and also what had become a second job, because at one point, you know, I was working probably 80 hours a week or something on both of these things. And like everyone has said as well, just to be realistic with your goals and expectations of how much you can achieve, and to not put significant amounts of pressure on yourself, because that's going to make you feel like a failure, because you're not going to be able to achieve those goals. And then you're just going to be discouraged and disheartened by it, or you're going to be embarrassed by it when you don't communicate with the publishers or whatever. And it's not going to make you do your best work. And what we have found too, what we tried to do when I was working full time, is we tried, if I knew I had a big deadline at work, was to try not to make a big deadline for ourselves, like to do a big video for something. But that wasn't always possible, because games come out when they come out, and things happen at work when they happened at work. So that wasn't always possible, and that was the really, really difficult time. But now, fortunately, now I'm not working at the library. We can kind of balance those expectations of ourselves more. If we know that we have a big project, like the 18xx video or something like that, we will then try and not have too many big projects for the very near future, and we'll put that slightly further ahead and work on something kind of lighter or easier to get out. So we're still making content, but just not digging ourselves into these giant trenches.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great idea and comment, the like making sure if you have something on your work horizon that's really big, and you know, try and balance it with what you're planning for the video and the content creation horizon. And, you know, sometimes you can't help it. Like sometimes a publisher just emails you out of the blue and is like, hey, we're going to do Fort and can you make this video? So yeah, but congratulations again. I know I've told you this, but congratulations again for going full-time. It's fantastic. Thanks. And it's a lot of work. I remember when I was like, holy crap, I'm full-time, right? And full-time, you know, a lot of people succeed in going full-time different ways. I know I'm not going to even throw it to you because we're out of time, but we're going to go over anyway. I know, Jess, you went full-time, and you're full-time kind of freelance style. So you take stuff from kind of everybody to go freelance. Jonathan, you're full-time in like your stay-at-home dad, but like this is what you're doing, you know, kind of basically as much as a real full-time job. And then from the publisher side, I know Shannon and Gates, I'm pretty sure you're the same as me. We're not really full-time. We're like full and a half time, but that's, you know, a whole other thing. But Mandy, you are still full-time plus full-time with a full-time job. You still are a full-time teacher, and you do other stuff like the podcasts and the videos and your new Twitch thing that you're doing with Susan. So how do you stay sane? And also the Animal Crossing server. I would have also, that Animal Crossing server saved my life in April. Thank you so much. Best community in Animal Crossing, by the way. So Mandy, how do you stay sane and do your work-life balance?
So it's constantly improving. So for me, it's one of those things I have to be very honest. Am I always good at it? No. And there might be other people who are like me. I have ADHD, so it's really hard for me. I have to be very organized. Everything's kind of scheduled. I also work with Suzanne, and we are in a 3-hour time difference. She's behind, I'm ahead. So even just planning for that can be exhausting, especially for me, because sometimes it's late when we're doing things. So these are things I'm working on, but I'm also trying to set aside time. You know, I like to sew, or in the wintertime I go snowboarding and that sort of thing. So I've had to learn to specifically put time aside and learn to say no. That's been the hardest thing for me. I've been like that since I was a child. I always want to be, you know, yeah, I can do that for you, you know, be really positive. You need to evaluate and say, hey, I can't do that. With my day job, I have limitations, and I'm very upfront about it. When I speak to publishers, I have a full-time job. This is the timeline that I have that I can get that to you. If it doesn't work, then maybe I'm not the right fit for this particular project. So My answer is it's constantly improving. It's never going to be perfect, but some things to remember is learn how to say no effectively, be honest and upfront, and try and schedule things, especially those of you who
definitely.
have children.
Schedules help. Trying to be consistent with the schedule, be honest with yourself on a schedule. And sometimes that honesty with yourself is saying, I'm not going to get to this. And sometimes that honesty to yourself is, I'm going to spend way too long on this and not sleep tonight. Like, just be honest to yourself. Don't be in denial of like, 30 more minutes, I'm going to bed. Just own it. Just be like, well, I'm up till 4 a.m. This is going to happen. Just try and be honest with yourself. And I know it's hard. It's a skill to learn. I mean, I did that last night when I was prepping for all the streams that I had today. I was like, I'm just going to go to bed at 1. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to sleep when this is done. So yeah, it's a thing that you always are constantly battling with. Work-life balance is a thing that will constantly be something you're dealing with in this hobby, in the content creation space, and also as a publisher and just as somebody that loves board gaming, because there's so much you can do to help grow this community. There's so much you can help do to help grow board gaming as a hobby, as an industry, and so many people that are here do it because they love the industry, they love the hobby, and they want to see it grow. And when you love something and you want to see it grow, it's really hard to say no. It's really hard to maintain that balance that is good for your mental health and what you can do. But you just have to be honest about that and do your best. Lean on your friends, lean on your community members, lean on your companions. One of the things I joke about is there's like this class of content creators. There's this class of industry people that come in. And so I feel like every year we have like a new bunch of YouTubers and new content creators and new podcasts. And then like, we're like, yay. And they all band together and they help each other. And then the next year, the ones that have stuck around, we're like, oh, you're sophomores. Yeah. Yoo-hoo. Right. And then like, eventually you get to the point where it's like, you've been in the industry for 5 years. You know, all of the shenanigans. You can help with everybody. And I can tell you right now, no one in this industry that is any level in this industry for more than a couple years did this by themselves. We all lean on each other. We all support each other. And that is a big part of helping all of us maintain a good balance and mental health. So there's so many great comments. Mandy's got to leave. Mandy's got to stream. She's got to prep for. We've run over a little bit. There's so many great comments in the thing. I wanted to point out this one. Panda Amanda, I hope the One Tar will put this video on their YouTube channel. I will. Yes, definitely 100%. You didn't even have to ask. There's been a couple people that have said this would be an amazing ongoing video series. There's obviously enough content to deep dive on the specifics. Definitely 100%. I will not be organizing that. From the work-life balance, there is no way I can handle that. I barely was able to put together this panel. The only reason this panel succeeded is because of the panelists on it helped me so much behind the scenes. Shannon helped make the graphic for the marketing and tweeting. Jonathan and Rodney helped collect questions and tweet and support. Jess helped do stuff as well. Everybody was using their platforms to help grow. So thank you so much, panelists, for one, helping make this happen, and two, for coming and being on this panel. Tabletop Games Blog said a weekly or monthly panel like this would be a great idea. I agree. Someone should do that. Not me.
I think Tabletop Games Blog is volunteering to do that. I think that's what that comment means.
That's where we go. There we go.
Clearly.
Perfect. There's so many great questions. I'm going to put this one up because I love the emojis. Thank you, Amanda Panda. Yes, exactly. Rob's Gaming Table. Thank you all. This will be available on thank you so much before you play. Monique and Naveen, I love you guys. Thank you everybody that watched. Thank you everybody that came in and asked questions. I'm so sorry we weren't able. I still have 16 questions in my scroll thing of like questions to put up. There's no way we're going to get to them. Thank you so much. This will be available on the YouTube later. If you would like to follow the content creators in this video, go find them. Google. They're on the Twitter and things like that. I don't know if people want to post their social media stuff. I will have the social media information on where you can find everybody that was on the panel in the description of the YouTube video when the YouTube video is up. So that is great. Thank you again. I'm going to jump into private chat because everybody's talking. Yeah, so you all can unmute and say stuff if you want to say stuff. We're closing it out. Anybody got any last things?
Thanks for doing this too. It's great.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This is awesome. All right. If you are attending Gen Con online, I hope you're having a fun time. The server is pretty good. The hall is good. There's a bunch of different publishers doing some stuff. Check out the publisher social media things to see what they're doing. I know that HABA is running a Discord server. You can find that information at habausa.com/GenCon online to get information. Leader and Chip Theory, are you all doing anything special?
Yeah, we're streaming all weekend, so you can find us at chiptheorygames.com/live, and
Awesome.
you can get to our Discord from there as well.
And then Leader Games is running events all week long. So if you go to the event catalog, search Leader, you can definitely hop into a spot. And then we're also doing pickup games in the Discord server. And then also Fort is pre-ordering right now. So we have a whole bunch of content that's coming out.
You all have been
right
doing
now.
awesome streams recently and playthroughs and some stuff on that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, we are still doing our streams on Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time, and we are also doing a D&D stream on Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Yes, and then Jonathan, your information can be available at geekdad.com. Yes, written reviews, anything like that? Yeah.
Yep. I'm actually working on my review of Fort at the time. In the tradition of being totally unprepared for Gen Con by taking a family trip right before it, we went down to Crater Lake this week, and I got back last night, and our Wi-Fi there was much spottier than I expected, so I did not. Oh, and also we just moved our GeekDad server this week. I didn't, but they did that. So then my email wasn't working, and I couldn't log in. And so, so I had a forced vacation for a little bit there. So
there you go. That's nice. And Jess, I know that you're online everywhere at all times.
But tonight, Girls Stampede will be streaming Petrichor with cows at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time over on Heavy Cardboard. So,
I wish I had time for that.
To check that out.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much again, panelists, for coming. Thank you so much, viewers, for coming and hanging out. I hope to see you all around on the internet, and also the next time we are able to safely get together, I would love to see all of you and go hang out, get a coffee, maybe a other type of beverage. Thank you so much. I miss all of my lovely convention face.
I know. I miss you all.
This has been a really I just wanted you guys to know that are watching the publishers. We have such a tight knit. It's like a traveling circus or like summer camp, and I haven't been able to see any of these people, these fine people in real life, and so this is really great. This has made me super happy, and then also lethargic and sad and missing it. So yeah, thank you so much. Good night, internet.
Bye.